Welcome to this new lecture. First we will review this last lecture where we started the basically defect migration and the impact of this migration on the properties. So, in the context of defect migration, the first important phenomena is diffusion. Now, diffusion is a very important phenomena in many microstructural processes such as in sintering, grain growth, etc. And basically, and this here in this context, this means transport of defects, which is related to conduction. And so then we looked at the diffusion kinetics. So basically, we looked at first the Fick's first law, which says that diffusion flux is proportional to the concentration gradient, and in most circumstances diffusion occurs in the direction from higher concentration to lower concentration. And then we looked at we assume that the diffusivity is a constant. It's not a, it's independent of concentration and position, but it is a function of temperature. And the relation is given as d naught exponential minus q d by k t, which means it has a exponential dependence. So what happens here is, if you plot log d versus 1000 by t, it varies like this, and the slope of this plot is determines the activation energy, which is minus q by k. And then we looked at what is the Fick's second law, which is actually not a law, but a derivation, where we see what is the rate of change of concentration and related to the basically the flux. And then we went into what is diffusivity. So, taking the case of dilute solutions, took number of for example, we looked at the planes of atoms in a material, and we looked at the flux from one plane to another back and forth, and from that we could find out what is the net flux, and from this we derived what is diffusivity as a function of a constant which is determined by the crystal type and packing density, lambda which is the jump distance, and tau which is the jump frequency. And from this we went on further to look into what is tau, and tau can be related using Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics to exponential minus of delta G star by k t, where delta G star is nothing but an energy barrier which has to overcome when an atom moves from one equilibrium state to another equilibrium state. And as a result we get the temperature dependence of diffusivity. And then we looked at various diffusion mechanisms. There are various mechanisms such as vacancy diffusion, interstitial diffusion, substitutional diffusion, and it turns out that the diffusion mechanisms, basically among all these diffusion mechanisms, vacancy diffusion and interstitial diffusions have lower activation energy because of least resistance offered by the lattice in the movement. And we also saw that since there is a counter movement of vacancies in atoms, the self diffusion coefficient or the interstitial diffusion coefficient can be related to the proportion or the concentration of vacancies or the interstitials. So, for example, in NaCl this would be, so sodium diffusion would be proportional to, would be equal to vacancy diffusion coefficient multiplied by concentration of sodium vacancies. And now in this lecture, here we will start. So, what we will now do is, we will take a look at the example of diffusion in, for example, sodium chloride, and we will see what happens when sodium chloride is in pure form and what happens when sodium chloride is not in pure form. So, sodium chloride, so basically we will say diffusion in lightly doped NaCl. Okay. So, sodium chloride is an important material. It is used in electrolyte in many applications, and that is why it is a good example for providing a picture of diffusion. So, sodium chloride contains cadmium chloride is a common impurity in sodium chloride. Okay, and it is present in very small quantities, So, when you dope cadmium sodium chloride with cadmium chloride, what happens is your cadmium goes to sodium site. Now, when cadmium goes to sodium site, it will give one extra positive charge. So, CdNa dot plus, let us say if both the chlorines go to chlorine sites, so these will be chargeless. So, now we do not have the charge balance and also we do not have the site balance, because both the chlorines have gone to chlorine sites, which means for 2 of these chlorine sites I should have 2 of these sodium sites. One of those sodium sites is occupied by calcium and another one must be empty. So, V Na and this will carry one negative charge. This will be the defect reaction. So, this is your extrinsic defect formation. Okay. So, this is your extrinsic defect. Extrinsic defect means the defect which is formed due to impurities. Now, what is the intrinsic defect? Intrinsic defect we know in NaCl. NaCl is very prone to having Schottky defects. So, intrinsic defects is Vna and VCl. Now, Vna in NaCl is more mobile as compared to VCl. So, we will compare this formation of Vna and its impact on diffusion. So, in whatever the scenario is, now whether it is extrinsic scenario or intrinsic scenario, the diffusivity of sodium DNA is governed by vacancy concentration. So, we will have DNA is equal to Vna multiplied by gamma lambda square nu into exponential of minus delta H star Na divided by Kt. In fact, it should be delta G star, because we will break it down little later. Okay. So, if this is the expression for diffusivity, where delta G star Na is nothing but free energy, migration free energy associated with sodium vacancies. Okay. And if and where Vna is the sodium vacancy concentration. So, now what happens at that at lower temperatures, your CdCl2, let us say if it is present in ppm quantities. Now, you know from the defect reaction that for each cadmium ion you have one sodium vacancy. So, basically the number of sodium vacancies in sodium chloride is going to be equal to number of cadmium ions or cadmium chloride concentration. So, at lower temperatures, when Schottky defect formation does not give rise to large number of vacancies, because we know that intrinsic defect concentration Vna is proportional to exponential of minus delta Hs star divided by 2 Kt. So, at lower temperatures the intrinsic, low temperature means intrinsic Vna concentration will be low. So, what happens is that at lower temperatures the concentration of Vna is determined by presence of impurities. If you have CdCl2 present in larger quantities than those than let us say the number of vacancies which are created by intrinsic ionization, in that case the vacancy is, so at lower temperatures Vna extrinsic, which is due to presence of CdCl2 in moderate quantities, will be much larger than Vna intrinsic. So, what will now, is this extrinsic concentration temperature dependent? It is not temperature dependent, because it is solely dependent upon the concentration of vacancies. So, now what happens is So when you plot the vacancy concentration now, let us say concentration as a function of temperature, let us say 1 by T. Now in the lower temperature side, let me just, so your this is N would mean basically VNA concentration. Okay. So intrinsic vacancy concentration varies like this as a function of temperature, and this slope will be equal to delta HS star divided by 2K. At if you start coming now, if the sodium chloride was impure and if you start coming from low to high temperature, up to certain temperature, the concentration of sodium vacancies due to extrinsic impurities is constant, because extrinsic impurity concentration does not change as a function of temperature. So this VNA is basically equal to CDNA, and this is independent of temperature, which means concentration of VNA over certain temperature range is going to be basically a constant. Now, however, there is going to be a point when thermally created vacancies due to Schottky effect are going to take over this. So now what happens after a certain temperature, the concentration of, so this curve will follow like this. Okay. Now after a certain temperature, the thermally created vacancies start creeping in, so they start dominating. So what happens is that after this point, the VNA is now governed by temperature. So you have two regions here. If I now draw these two regions, so this will be overall concentration, intrinsic region followed by extrinsic region. So this will be your intrinsic vacancy creation region, and this will be your extrinsic vacancy creation region. What it basically means is that in the extrinsic region, the concentration of vacancies is going to be determined by concentration of impurities. In the intrinsic region, concentration of vacancies is going to be determined by temperature. Okay. Now this crossover temperature, so this crossover, what will this depend upon? Now crossover will naturally shift to right if the impurity concentration was low. Okay. So as impurity concentration decreases, this crossover will shift towards right, which means the behavior will become more and more intrinsic in nature. So basically, now when you plot diffusivity, so in case of diffusivity, your intrinsic diffusivity will be like this, because you know that diffusivity is equal to VNA into gamma nu lambda square exponential minus delta G star divided by KT. Okay. Now if you break this up, what this means is that D is equal to, if you just take an intrinsic region, then VNA is governed by CDNA, which is a constant, just extrinsic region, if not intrinsic region, if I said intrinsic region. So in extrinsic region, dCd will be equal to gamma nu lambda square into exponential of minus delta H star HM star divided by KT into exponential of delta S M star divided by K. Okay. So what is the activation energy in this case? In this case, the activation energy, if I just rub this out, I will plot this on the next slide. So in this case, extrinsic case, D will become, this is a constant for a given temperature, these are constant and this is a constant. So this will become D naught exponential minus of delta HM star divided by KT. So the slope of the curve in the extrinsic region will be this. Now let us examine the intrinsic region. we know that dNA is equal to again VNA into gamma lambda square nu exponential minus of delta Gm star divided by kT. Now, in the intrinsic region, VNA is equal to exponential of minus of delta HS star, or you can say HNA star, HS star divided by 2 kT gamma lambda square nu into exponential of minus delta HM star divided by kT into exponential of delta SM star divided by k. Okay. So, now what is constant here? This is a constant, this is a constant. So, dNA is equal to d naught, some constant, let us say in this case d naught prime, exponential of minus of delta HM star 2 HM star plus delta HS star divided by 2 kT. Okay. Or you can write it as delta HS by 2 divided by kT. So, this will be d naught prime exponential delta HM star plus delta HS by 2 divided by kT. So, naturally you can see that in this case the activation energy has gone up by the amount delta HS star divided by 2. So, now when you plot this, so let us say this is log D and this is 1 by T, and let us say this is the crossover point for composition, okay, at a particular composition of impurities. So, up to this point I can plot this in this manner. So, this is low temperature to the crossover point. The activation energy in this case is going to be delta HM star divided by K, minus of delta HM star divided by K. And now, what is the behavior going to be after this point? After this point, I know that the activation energy has increased. As a result, the slope will become like this. So, this will become minus of delta HM star delta HM star divided by K plus delta HS star divided by 2K. This will be the activation energy, and if you just extrapolate this curve somewhere here, this will be the intrinsic line and this is your extrinsic line. So, what you see here is, so if I now represent the overall behavior will be like this. This is the overall behavior. So, this is your intrinsic region and this is your extrinsic region. So, in a normal ceramic which contains some impurities as a result of whatever be the reason, it may be because of processing, it may be because of intention, but whatever be the reason, in a normal ceramic which contains the impurities, typically the diffusion or diffusivity has two regions as a function of temperature. First region from low temperature to a crossover temperature, which is determined by the impurity concentration, will be extrinsic region. In this region, since the vacancy concentration is solely determined by the impurity concentration, which is independent of temperature, the only activation energy which needs to be overcome, or the energy which needs to be supplied has to be equivalent to only the migration energy. However, at higher temperatures, when thermally created defects start dominating, in that case the activation energy becomes a sum of migration energy as well as the defect formation energy. So, what it means is that basically you need to provide much more energy in order for diffusion to occur. However, since higher thermal energy supports the formation of more defects, the thermally created defects dominate at these temperatures, and as a result intrinsic diffusion dominates. So, I hope that this point is clear. that there are two regions in most of the ceramics. One is extrinsic region and one is intrinsic, and this is also reflected in the conductivity plot as well, as we will see later on that conductivity is proportional to diffusivity. So, now what we will do is that we will discuss. So, we have discussed what diffusivity is, what diffusivity is in ionic systems or in ceramics. Now, we will discuss some of the electrical properties, and then we will establish a relation between electrical properties and diffusivity. So, now we will take what is called as mobility. So, mobility, as the name itself suggests, its ability to move. It is a very important term to define conduction in ionic solids, and basically mobility is defined as basically velocity of any species or any entity, velocity v per unit of driving force F. Okay. So, this is mobility is defined as velocity per unit driving force. This driving force could be a thermodynamic force, it could be a chemical force, it could be electrochemical force, it could be electrical force, any kind of force, but as a result of this force, the velocity which is achieved, the ratio of this velocity to the force is called as mobility. And so, there are various forms of mobilities. So, first form is called as absolute mobility. So, absolute mobility is defined as Bi. I means ith species, Vi into Vi is equal to V. So, capital Bi, B for boy, is equal to Vi. This V means velocity, divided by some force, and this force can be determined as which can be so Vi divided by 1 by Na. Na is the Avogadro's number, into d mu I by dx. So, here you can see the units, this is your Avogadro number, and mu I is the chemical potential of species I. The unit of this is centimeter per second, and you know what is the unit of this? Unit of Avogadro number is number per mole. X is in, let us say, centimeter, and mu I would be in joule per mole. So, now you can see what the units are going to be. The units will be in centimeter square, because this centimeter will go up. Yes, so these mole will cancel each other. So, this will become centimeter square per joule second. So, this will be your absolute mobility. You can also define what is called as chemical mobility. And chemical mobility is defined as Bi, let us say, prime, and this is equal to Vi divided by d mu I by dx, and this is in units of mole centimeter square per joule second. Okay. In case of electrical mobility, so basically this is the velocity and this is the chemical force. Electrical mobility is defined as mu I, this is equal to Vi divided by d phi by dx, which is the force due to applied voltage. So, or the electrical force, and the units of this are basically centimeter per second divided by volt per centimeter, or centimeter square per volt second. So, these will be the units of electrical mobility. Now, from the context of atomic transport, it was first Albert Einstein who pointed out that one of the most general driving force for the atomic movement which acts in the diffusion of a species in a system is a virtual force, and this virtual force is due to basically negative gradient of chemical potential, or chemical potential, as you know from the thermodynamic fundamentals, is nothing but partial molar free energy. And now this force is expressed as, so we can say this is, so Einstein, you should give credit to Einstein, who said that this virtual force is the reason, which is nothing but due to negative gradient of chemical potential, and this force Fi is equal to minus of 1 by Na d mu I by dx. So, this is the virtual force which acts on the particles during diffusion or transport of species in a system. So, this is the most general force. So, this mu I is nothing but your chemical potential, and Na, as you know, is the Avogadro's number. So, in such a case I can write what is absolute mobility. The absolute mobility is Bi is given as Vi, I know what Vi is, divided by force Fi, and I can write this as Vi divided by minus of 1 by Na into d mu I by dx. Okay. So, the absolute mobility which we defined in the previous slide was basically the same thing. So, now what we have to do is that we need to find a relation between this mobility and the diffusivity in order to write in order to create a formalism, and to do that we need to first of all write what is the flux of atoms. And what is the flux? Atomic flux So, we are considering diffusion in a system. Diffusion is happening in a system. So, diffusion of let us say any particular species, it may be defect, it may be interstitial, whatever, but we are considering this as a species I. So, that diffusion is happening because of this virtual force. That virtual force arises because of negative gradient in chemical potential from higher to lower chemical potential, and as a result you have a flux of atoms. So, this flux can be explained as nothing but Ci multiplied by Vi. That makes sense, because flux is nothing but product of, what is the unit of flux? You know that mole per number of atoms or number of species passing through per unit area per unit time. So, in this case this Ci is the concentration and Vi is the velocity, and this sort of makes sense because Vi is nothing but centimeter per second and this is nothing but numbers per centimeter cube. So, the units become numbers per centimeter square second. So, flux, which is also can be related to concentration gradient, we are not doing that at the moment, because what we are saying is that flux is because of negative gradient in the chemical potential. So, we are not relating it to the concentration gradient as yet. So, what we are saying is that flux is nothing but number of atoms or species passing through per unit square area per unit time, which is nothing but product of concentration multiplied by their velocity. So, this makes sense. Now, if Gi is equal to Ci Vi, then I can also write Ji is equal to Ci multiplied by Bi multiplied by Fi, because I know that small vi velocity is equal to absolute mobility and multiplied by force. Now what you need to do is that I need to substitute for Fi. So, Ji is equal to Ci multiplied by Bi, and what is Fi? Fi is minus 1 by Na multiplied by d mu I by dx. Okay. This is your Ji expression, and you can write it as minus of Ci Bi divided by Na into d mu I by dx. So, let us remember this expression. We will come back to this in a while. Okay. Now, for an ideal solution with the unit activity of each of the species I can write this chemical potential as, for an ideal solution I can write mu I as mu I naught, which is the standard in the standard state, plus RT ln Ci. Okay. Now, what I am saying is that, so this R is nothing but your gas constant. We have defined this R for the first time. So far we have been dealing with K. So, the change in the chemical potential can be written as, I can write d mu I as, since this is for a standard state, d mu I naught will become equal to 0, and this will become equal to RT d ln Ci, and this can further be written as RT ln Ci divided by Ci. Okay. So, from this what we will find out is, we will find out what is d mu I by dx. So, d mu I by dx would be equal to RT by Ci into dCi by, excuse me, I made a mistake somewhere, this would be not correct. So, basically if you remove that, what basically it is, so d mu I is equal to RT d ln Ci. Now, if I take this d mu I by dx, which will become RT by Ci into dCi by dx. Now, you substitute this expression in this expression. Okay. So, what we get now is Ji, expression for Ji is minus of 1 by Na into Bi Ci into RT by Ci into dCi by dx. Ci will cancel each other, and what you will get is minus of RT by Na into Bi into dCi by dx. Now, in this expression, if you look at this expression now, you have, this has some similarity to the Fick's first law, because you have a concentration gradient here and you have another factor which is a constant, or you can assume it as a constant at the moment, because you have, what you have is absolute mobility, Avogadro number, temperature and gas constant. And what does this look like? This has a form of J is equal to minus d dC by dx. If you now compare these two, what you can find is di is equal to RT by Na multiplied by Bi, and this is a relation which is between diffusivity and mobility. So, these two properties can be related to each other, or alternatively you can write it as KT Bi, and this is called as Nernst Einstein relation. So, this is the first formalism that we have established after knowing what diffusivity is, and this diffusivity of a species can be related to another parameter which is called as mobility, and this mobility at the moment we are not defining it as any electrical mobility or anything. We are just saying this is a mobility which is because of virtual force which is due to a negative chemical potential gradient which causes diffusion in a system. So, now what we will do is that we will, now that we have found a relation between the mobility and the diffusivity, we will take it further and we will establish an analog to the electrical properties, because in the end what we are going to use it in the context of electrical properties only. So, in the, let us say, context of electrical properties. Okay. So, here when we talk about in the context of electrical properties, we have to define the force. What is the electrical force? We have so far defined that diffusion is taking place, and that diffusion is taking place because of a chemical potential gradient. Now, if you talk in terms of electrical context, the movement happens because of some electrical force, and this electrical force I can write it as Fi, the force F which acts on ith particle, and this is nothing but equal to Zi E d phi by dx, where Zi E is the total charge on the particle and d phi by dx is equal to basically the potential gradient, and this is equal to Zi E E, which is the electrical field V by d, as you know it is. So, Zi is the total charge, or rather Zi E is the total charge. Zi is basically the atomic number and E is the not atomic number, rather you can write the valence of the species, and E is the electronic charge. So, if you use this relation, you can write the flux as flux. We knew that it is nothing but Ci into Vi, and this is nothing but Ci into Bi into Fi, and this is equal to Ci Bi into Zi E into E, capital E. Okay. And I know what is Bi. Bi, if you look at the previous expression, Bi is equal to di divided by kT. So, I can write this as di divided by kT into Zi E. Okay. So, or alternatively you can write it and Ji. So, I can write this as, so basically what you can do here now is Ci into Vi is equal to Ci di by kT into Zi E. Okay. So, here Ci cancel each other, and what you get is an expression for Vi, and Vi is equal to Zi E di divided by kT multiplied by E. So, this basically trick I have done to get a equation for Vi with respect to E with some proportionality constant, and this, if you remember, now electrical mobility is defined as basically defined as mu I is equal to Vi divided by electrical force, which is nothing but electric field, and this is nothing but your Zi E di divided by kT, and if you look at the units of this is in centimeter square per volt second. So, this is the relation mu I is equal to Zi E di by kT. This is a relation which you obtain for electrical mobility in an ionic system, where electrical mobility is of ith species is related to the diffusivity. So, this relates an atomic property which is diffusivity to the electrical property which is mu I, the electrical mobility. So, this is for an ionic system, we will further take it, we'll do some more things with these equations a little later on, but at the moment what I have done is basically I have showed you how the electrical mobility of species in an ionic system can be related to the diffusivity of a species at a given temperature. So, first before we go further into ionic conduction, we will briefly look at how the conduction takes place in the metallic conductors, and then compare this with the conduction in the ionic solids. So, while you can apply Nernst-Einstein relation to the motion of ions, electrons in whether in ionic system, whether in electronic systems or metallic system, it is possible to apply this relation to both the systems, but in reality the motion of electrons and ions in both the systems is quite different. Now, typically in metals and semiconductors, the electrons and holes, we consider them as quasi-free particles. These quasi-free particles under the influence of electric field acquire a drift velocity v d, and this the motion of the electron in these systems under the influence of electric field and is governed by various phenomena which are called as scattering phenomena. So, when you apply electric field, so basically what we will do here is so, when you apply an electric field, so under the application of a field E, the force on an electron F is given as Z E E. Okay. Now, when you apply a force to an electron, it acquires a velocity. The question is, does it keep on accelerating, or is there something else which stops the electron from keep on getting accelerating? So, when you apply force, this force has to be balanced by acceleration force. Z E E is equal to m e dv by dt. So, this is the acceleration term, but electron, we know that it does not keep on getting accelerated, it acquires a drift velocity, and this is due to something called as damping. So, this is the damping term, and this damping term which you can relate, for example, to something like friction, and this prevents the electron from capturing an infinite velocity. So, it captures so this mv by tau, basically you can write mv is nothing but momentum. So, basically this is nothing but p by tau, and this tau is nothing but your relaxation time, and this term arises because when electron undergoes when electron moves in a lattice under the influence of electric field, why it does not keep on accelerating is because it undergoes many collision events. This collision may be because of lattice phonons, etc., impurities, grain boundaries. So, as a result of these collisions, the electrons do not acquire since it travels a distance x, then it collides, again travels some distance x, then again collides. So, there is an average distance which it travels, and there is an average time between two collisions, and this tau represents that average time, which is called as relaxation time. Not, I have written as the relation time, it is not relation, it is relaxation time. So, this relaxation time is basically the average time spent between two collisions which electron undergoes while it moves in a lattice. So, let us say under steady state conditions, when it acquires V becomes equal to V d, when it acquires and dV by dt is equal to 0, and under such a situation your ZEE becomes equal to mVd by tau. Okay. And in such a situation, the mobility is defined as electronic mobility. So, this is electronic mobility mu e, and this is defined as V divided by ZE, and this is nothing but your. So, if you take V divided by ZE, this becomes equal to E tau divided by m. So, what it basically tells you is that higher tau is, higher mu e is, because we know that conductivity is equal to NEVD, and this V is proportional to mu, right? Or I can write this expression in slightly differently. J is equal to sigma E, and sigma is equal to NE mu, and you know that mu is proportional to V, because we know that. So, this becomes NE into V by, so this becomes NV by E. So, this, or let us just drop it. So, what basically this mobility is? Mobility is nothing but velocity divided by force, and this becomes from the previous relation E tau divided by m. So, as tau increases, mu e increases, and what does tau depend upon? Tau depends upon your scattering events. So, what are the things which scatter? So, basically tau decreases as temperature increases. Temperature increases means the lattice vibration increases. As the lattice vibrations increase, the electrons tend to scatter more and more. So, as a result, the tau decreases. So, as the temperature increases, tau decreases, and hence mu e will decrease. Okay. And this relation goes as T to the power minus 3 by 2, and similarly tau decreases as impurity concentration increases. So, in a system, in a metallic system, as the temperature increases and as the impurity concentration increases, both the relaxation time decreases. As a result, the electronic mobility decreases, and that is why in metallic systems what you see is that as you heat the solid, the conductivity goes down, because conductivity is proportional to the mobility. On the other hand, the ionic motion, the ionic conduction is rather different. In case of ionic conduction, it is not similar to metals and semiconductor. It's not similar to metals or semiconductors even, because in the case of metals and semiconductor, the electrons and holes, if you talk about semiconductor also holes, metals and semiconductor, they undergo a band transport, which means they tend to move in the band, whereas in and the conduction in these solids is affected by things like temperature, impurities, and the defects, the dopants, etc. So, in metals, conductivity increases as temperature decreases and defects decrease, defect concentration, let us say, decreases. In case of, on the other hand, in semiconductors, the situation is slightly different. In case of semiconductors, you have a conduction valence. So, this is your conduction band, this is your valence band, and this is your EV, this is your EC. The electrons have to overcome gap, which is EF, EG, and this is the position of your Fermi energy, which shifts up and down depending upon what type of semiconductor it is, whether N type or P type. Now, in case of semiconductor, now in both metal semiconductor, the transport is of band transport, it happens in the band itself, but there are some differences. The mobility goes down mu decreases as T increases. That is true for both the systems. The only difference is that since conductivity is proportional to N as well as mu, so as temperature decreases, mu decreases in both the cases, but change in N is different. So, in case of semiconductors, since the carrier concentration is dependent upon the band gap, that as the temperature increases in semiconductors, as temperature increases, N increases. So, as a result, the conductivity tends to increase in semiconductor as the temperature is increased. So, this is also true about ionic solids. In case of ionic solids, as you increase the temperature, the conduction, the concentration of mobile species goes up, such as vacancies. So, coming back to the conduction type, the conduction in metallic and semiconductor solids, whatever be the relation of concentration and mobility with the temperature is, the relation is what we are interested here is in the mobility. So, mobility in case of semiconducting solids and metallic solids, semiconductors and metals decreases as a function of temperature. As the temperature increases, the mobility goes down, and the transport is of type band conduction. So, electrons and holes tend to move in bands. On the other hand, the conduction in ionic solids tend to be rather different. It tends to be hopping, or let us say polaronic type of conduction. So, what basically happens in these systems is that the carriers which are present in the lattice, they tend to polarize the lattice, and this polarization of the lattice results in association of the carrier with the lattice, and this association of proximity of the association or proximity of the carrier with the lattice results in what is called as a polaron. So, this polaron can be longer than the size of the unit cell. It can be quite big, and so in this system, that in case of ionic systems, the transport is polaronic. And this polaronic transport happens because of hopping. So, you have, since the charge is associated somewhere here, so when it has to move to other site, it does by hopping like this. So, this is the crucial difference between metals, semiconductors and ionic solids. In case of metals, it is band transport, which means electrons travel within the energy bands. If you go into the band theory of metals, you will find the reasons of band transport, but at the moment let us just stick to this fact that electrons tend to move within the bands. So, within the bands means under different energy levels. So, there we are not looking at the conduction as a function of let us say the transport distance. Here, in case of ceramics or ionic solids, what happens is if the charge has to transport, it transports by hopping from one side to another side and then another to another, and this hopping, as we know, is an activated phenomena, and this goes as exponential minus q by kt. So, typically what you will see is that in these systems the mobility is a function of exponential minus q by kt. So, in contrast to metals and semiconductor, in ionic solids the mobility tends to increase with temperature. So, this is the crucial difference which arises because of difference in transport mechanism. The transport mechanism in case of metals tends to be, I repeat again, tends to be band transport type, which is the movement of electrons between the energy levels, and here it tends to be hopping type between the atomic sites, and this requires energy barriers to be overcome. As a result, the mu is a function of exponential minus q by kt. So, I will finish the lecture here today. In the next class, we will learn more about the ionic conduction, and then we will look at what the ionic conductivity in ionic solids is like. Thank you.